Recently, Microsoft bought Bethesda for $7.5 billion, one of the biggest acquisitions in gaming history. And they've purchased many companies before, like Mojang, which was also one of the biggest acquisitions in gaming history. And people want them to buy companies like Sega, and there are rumors of them buying WB Games earlier this year. Let's go back to one of their earlier acquisitions, RareWare. Something that didn't really help out RareWare in the long run now, has it? Let's talk about how that came to be. Hi guys, DPX here, and I am the In-Depth Detective. Welcome to the show with that same name. Today we look at when Microsoft bought Rare. Now before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to subscribe to turn on notifications, and leave a comment, and you'll be a loyal subscriber. Before we talk about how Rare became a part of Microsoft, we have to talk about how they might as well have been a part of Nintendo. While around before, while making computer games and NES games, such as Battletoads and Wizards and Warriors, their rise in popularity came on the SNES when working with Nintendo on games like Donkey Kong Country and Killer Instinct, and grew even more on the Nintendo 64, with games like GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Mickey's Speedway, Banjo-Kazooie, Diddy Kong Racing, and so many others. All these games released to critical praise, or at least were well liked by many, and many sort of just thought of Rare as a part of Nintendo. While not owned by them, characters like Banjo-Kazooie, Conker, the Battletoads, Joanna Dark, and anyone from Killer Instinct were all sort of just considered Nintendo characters. After the Nintendo 64 finished up, it was now time for the Nintendo GameCube, their next console, and many people were eager to find out what else Rare had up their sleeves for the GameCube. And that was a game called Dinosaur Planet. It was going to be a game similar to Zelda, but you play as a fox and explore dinosaurs. However, Nintendo saw that and thought to change Dinosaur Planet and to Star Fox Adventures, taking the characters from the Star Fox series following the critically acclaimed Star Fox 64, but the game was going to be nothing like that one. This change left RareWare's Dinosaur Planet team devastated, but went ahead with Star Fox Adventures. So what happened next? Star Fox Adventures released on September 23rd, 2002. It was divisive to say the least. Some people had fun with the game while others didn't and thought it strayed too far away from Star Fox and shouldn't have had the Star Fox name on it. And the series hasn't quite been the same since. Not too often you see a new Star Fox game. The future of RareWare's partnership with Nintendo was kinda up in the air. Well, it was around the time where Rare were looking for a bigger studio to purchase them. Naturally, they first looked at Nintendo since they already had a really good working relationship, and while there have been RareWare games on other platforms, they were pretty much synonymous with Nintendo. Like, you wouldn't see Banjo or Conker appearing on a Sega or Sony console. It seemed like a no-brainer, but Nintendo never actually really even sought out to buy Rare. This is due to Rare's performance of games on the Nintendo 64. It wasn't bad by any means. In fact, I'd personally say their best games are on that console. But in terms of sales, their performance on the SNES was much better. Nintendo and Rare were still good partners, but Chris and Tim Stamper, the founder and co-founder of Rare, wanted to expand their audiences and looked in other places. It was unfortunate, but it was the truth. Nintendo wasn't very interested in buying Rare, and Rare had moved on and started looking for other publishers to buy them out. It is worth noting, however, that according to certain rumors, these are just rumors, Rare made a financial pitch to the, at the time, Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi, but Yamauchi offered a much lower amount in response to the pitch. As Rare started looking for other buyers, two significant ones came up. There was Activision and Microsoft. It's crazy to think now, but back then, Microsoft getting into the gaming console market was probably just how we think of Google or Amazon, companies like that getting into the gaming market. Oh wait, not consoles, but still. Anyways, this was because Microsoft had really just come out with their first console, the Xbox, and that was like earlier this year that we're talking about right now. But they were mainly known for their computers and stuff. Activision were well known for their Tony Hawk Pro Skater games at the time, as well as others, and they were quite hot off the acquisitions of the Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon franchises, which they bought off of Universal, and that was a big deal. In an interview with IGN though, according to Xbox co-creator Ed Fries, this is what happened.
In fact, Activision almost did.
I'm sure that would have ended well.
So we put in a bid, and then Activision outbid us, and it looked like we were going to lose the deal. And then at the very last minute, Robbie increased our bid, and we won.
Wow.
And we won the deal.
Yup. Activision almost outbid Microsoft to buy Rare. However, as you heard in that clip, Microsoft managed to outbid Activision, and thus, Microsoft was now purchasing RareWare for $375 million. The deal was finalized in 2003. RareWare was now a part of Microsoft. While third-party IPs Rare worked on like Donkey Kong, Star Fox, and GoldenEye all remained with their respective IP owners, IPs like Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Perfect Dark, and Battletoads, amongst others, were all now IPs of Microsoft. Early on, this actually created a bit of chaos. What I mean is Rare were working on Donkey Kong Racing, which would have been a sequel to the widely acclaimed Diddy Kong Racing, but it was left unfinished and unreleased. A new IP from Rare, grabbed by the Ghoulies, Rare's first game after the acquisition, was originally intended as a GameCube game, but was made for the Xbox. When it released, it did so to mixed reviews. While praised for its visuals, some criticized the game for feeling like a last-gen game. Rare also remade Conker's Bad Fur Day on the Xbox, titled Conker Live and Reloaded. And despite being on a console from a company not as geared to kids as Nintendo is, Conker Live and Reloaded censored a lot from the original game. It is worth noting, though, that Microsoft let Rare make games for Nintendo's handheld devices. This included Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge, Banjo Pilot, and Saber Wolf for the Game Boy Advance. However, with Microsoft coming out with their new console, the Xbox 360, they called Rare back for console duties. Microsoft wanted two new Rare games for the launch of the Xbox 360. One of these two games were Cameo, Elements of Power. This game actually started as a GameCube game, but then was brought over to the Xbox due to the acquisition and ended up as a launch title for the Xbox 360. The game actually ended up being quite successful. Their second game for the launch was supposed to be the System Seller. that being Perfect Dark Zero. The sequel to the critically acclaimed N64 title was originally revealed by Nintendo at Space World 2000, but obviously Nintendo didn't end up publishing it. The game was rushed and even had features removed to make the deadline of the 360's launch. Critics thought the game underdelivered despite rather positive reviews. Players seemed to not really like this game though. Regardless, it also sold pretty well. Rare would later release Viva Pinata, which also seemed to be pretty well liked, and critics called it Rare's best game since the acquisition. However, the game didn't sell very well. It was clear to say that while not bad, Rare's post-acquisition games didn't quite live up to the standards set by their SNES and N64 games, but then they had a brand new Banjo-Kazooie game, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. This was a big deal, but heavily disappointed many fans, and also did not sell very well. After the failure that was Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, Microsoft restructured the team at Rare and had them focus on Kinect games and the Xbox 360's customizable avatars instead. Yeah, so that was the purchase Microsoft made to Rare. And also, why Rare isn't quite what they used to be. It does suck how a company held with such high regard went down like that. Some people think that this may be one of Nintendo's biggest mistakes, to not purchase Rare. And while they probably should have purchased Rare as it just made too much sense, it's not really Nintendo's fault that Microsoft is right now doing fuck all with Rare. No pun intended, it is pretty rare you see anything from Rare. The Xbox One, Xbox's next console after the 360, came out, and we got a return from Killer Instinct. It had a rather less than stellar launch, but right now the game is actually pretty good. There is also the Rare Replay, letting you replay a bunch of Rare games. They also released Sea of Thieves, which that also launched to less than stellar reviews, but then later, over time, got more content and people seem to like it right now. Recently, they just came out with Battletoads, which seemed to get mixed reviews. They also announced a brand new IP, Everwild, which we don't know much about. But one big thing is that possibly their most iconic character, Banjo-Kazooie, ended up as a DLC character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, making the demand for a new Banjo-Kazooie game higher than it has been in the past 10 to 20 years. Rare seems to be coming back a little bit. They will never be like how they used to be. There have been recent rumors of a new Perfect Dark game coming to the new Xbox console, but not much beyond that. Anyways, I'm going to throw this over to you. Do you think Nintendo should have bought Rare? Or do you think this was all on Microsoft? Let me know down below. Anyways, thanks for watching this episode of The In-Depth Detective. Be sure to like this video, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.